Shalom. Welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, and today we're going to talk about a very interesting idea about Jacob and Esav. Now let me give you the basic Judaism, then we're going to go far, far deeper into the Parsha. Isaac and Rivka, they were our second of the forefathers and matriarchs, had a child. Actually, it was very difficult to have children at first, but then after about 10 years, they prayed to God, and eventually Rivka got pregnant, and that she actually had twins. She didn't know she had twins, but she was actually, I'm not a woman, I never had a child, but again, to have two children inside of your stomach is pretty tough. But it was beyond that they actually, it says, they were struggling in the womb. It says, then it was very, very uncomfortable. She searched out God, which meant she went to Shem, who was the son of Noah. What's happening here? Something's crazy in my stomach. He says, well, you have two nations that are going to be born to you. One is Jacob, the father, or one of the forefathers of the Jewish people, and Esav, who is going to be, in ancient times, the father of Edom, which will eventually become Rome, which will eventually become really the Western world. And they're struggling, as there has been, and obviously that needed a prophecy 4,000 years ago, and here we're in the 21st century, so we actually have hindsight is 2020. We see how the struggle between the different cultures for thousands of years literally has been happening. But that was the prophecy, and like we just said, it obviously we see it came true. So when they grew up, Jacob became the good Jewish person, learning in the yeshiva and the study hall, and Esav then became a little bit of a, and you say this in Yiddish, a wilde chaya, a wild animal. He was hunting, and he really, it says even worse, he took women away from their husbands, kind of a real low life, killing people, hurting people, taking wives away from them, totally diametrically different from each other, even though they were twins. And Jacob always felt that he was the rightful heir for Isaac. It actually says a very interesting idea. Where did Yaakov even get his name? Because Yaakov in Hebrew, Jacob from the root word akav means heel. And why was that? Because really that Esav was the firstborn, and that's going to be a matter of argument throughout their lives. But Jacob was holding on, says, hey, wait a minute, I want to be the firstborn because firstborn gets special rights in Torah. So he was holding on to the heel of Esav, so that's why his father and mother called him Yaakov, Akav, from the word heel. And Esav, his name is Esav because he came out, a child doesn't have any hair on them, so it takes even a while for the hair to grow on their head even. So, but he was fully developed even as a child. Esau, from the word asu, he was made already. In other words, fully developed even as a baby. So therefore this struggle even happened in the womb, like we said. Because what was the struggle? Because every time Rivka passed by a study hall, Jacob said, that's for me, I want to go, started going me, knocking on her belly in the womb. And when Esav, as a fetus, but they went around an idol worshiping place, he wanted to get out. So there's always this rattling in her stomach, can only imagine her pregnancy. And that's why she, like we said, she had to ask, what's happening here? I don't know what's happening. But there was this conflict throughout their lives. And eventually that Isaac felt that he was dying. We're skipping over the whole lifetime, many, many years, but he was dying. So he wanted to give a blessing to his children. Well, who would you give a blessing to? And if you're Isaac, again, you're one of our forefathers. He's a special Jewish person. He's a tzaddik, a righteous person. Who would you give a blessing to? Of course, you would give it to Jacob and not to this Vildachai's son, Why would you give him your special blessing? But that Isaac tells Esav that I'm going to give you a special blessing. So the story is, they says, go out and get me something to eat. In the meantime, Rivka, and always putting in a good word for women, of course, that the mother Rivka actually understood that Jacob deserved the blessing, says, all right, here's some sheepskin, your father is blind, he doesn't know who's who, and therefore you're going to trick him, and he's going to give you the blessings. And that's what happened. And Esav after heard that, he says, I'm ready to kill the guy. My brother, he stole my blessings. In any case, that the point was, is the real, now comes the big question. There's always so many questions, but the big classic question is, how could Isaac want to bless Esav, the Vildachaya's son, and Rivka are right. It's very nice that she knew better, and she was right, of course, but what's with Isaac? So on one hand, there are answers that we just said. He's blind. He didn't know what's happening. You know, someone who doesn't know about their child, he's blind, he just sits in his tent, he doesn't know what he's doing. We said he's hurting people. How's he supposed to know? There's no internet. There's no fax machines. Telephone, how was he supposed to know? He didn't know, so he's blind, and he's sitting in his tent or outside the tent, and he doesn't know what's happening in life. So that may be an answer, but that's unacceptable to us, because Isaac, we said, is a very holy person, and maybe didn't have physical sight. I mean, the Bible, the Chumash says he was blind, but on the other hand, he actually, to say that he was blind was, on one hand, that he was a holy man, and a holy man, it doesn't make a difference about his physical sight. He surely had spiritual insight into everything. And then there's other places that he knew he was wild, and so, well, if you knew he was wild, then why are you giving him a blessing? Now, this is very deep. That's why I told you this is the deep explanation, that we gave you the basic scenario, what was happening. We framed the issue, and now we're going to go into something a little bit deeper, a lot deeper. And that is that Esav really was born, of course, as we just said, from a Jewish mother, so he really was a Jewish person. And even though outwardly, and like we said, this isn't indicative of a Jewish person, hunting for animals and being mean and taking wives away, a Jewish person, according to Torah, is the most highest morals and ethics person. And here he was just the opposite of that. But ultimately, Isaac understood that he has good potential. And that's very important for us to understand. I'll give you even the mystical idea for that, but in the meantime, right now, that he's just saying that he was actually had used his talents, which he was very talented and strong and had a leadership role, that he had 400 men with him when he met Jacob after he was exiled. So he had leadership skills, and he just wanted to rein it into holiness. And that is really a major, major point, that, like we said, the Jewish people, literally for the last 2,000 years, have been in exile, and mainly I know there's a lot of Sephardic communities in the Arab lands, and until 1948, until the War of Independence, was tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Jews there anciently, but really for the most part, the major Jewish people were in Europe. I mean, you could say America too now, but America is an extension of Europe. I always say that we're speaking English, we're speaking European language. And we have a Roman Senate, and we have a Senate, and most of the people in America and United States are really European immigrants. So really, our society, I know it's obviously different, United States different than England, France, and Germany, and Russia. On the other hand, we are really those kind of people in a different way. So we're really part of, in a lot of senses, the European continent. And we've been, as the Jewish people, obviously, again, just basic Jewish history, have been oppressed very much out throughout. There was the Crusades in Europe, and obviously we just know the basic again is just that there was the Holocaust, culminating in the Holocaust of wiping out a third of Jewry. So there's been struggles, and really it's a whole subject in its own right. Again, the oppression, the enslavement really of the Jewish people, of being not only second-class citizens in Europe, but being killed and maimed and pogroms. It's like literally fill up a major book and a study about anti-Semitism and for the last 2,000 years in Europe. But suffice it to say, for our business, it was just really the European people really did oppress the Jewish people, or basically even going back to the original idea, it was Esav, because we just said the progenitor of the European people. We said that he was Edom, and they moved to Rome, and Rome is the Holy Roman Empire. It's Europe in different senses. In any case, that it was really Esav oppressing Jacob. Now, why was this? This is why it's really, it puts in a light, if you understand this, the light of the whole Jewish history into focus, what we're talking about. And it started 4,000 years ago with Jacob and Esav, originally as brothers, and there was an animosity between them, and there was, Jacob never hated Esav, but Esav in many stories wanted to really kill Jacob. It's only for the guidance of the Almighty that he wasn't killed, and he had to run away from him for so many years, because Jacob had to hide away in his father-in-law's house in order not to get killed. And the reason is just, and then again, now it comes even a bigger issue, why would Isaac bless Esav? And the answer is just like I said, that a Jewish person in this world, it's not like us against them. God created the entire world. He's everywhere. And still, and even though surely there's evil still in the world until the Mashiach Messiah comes, but nevertheless, it's all controlled in a certain sense and orchestrated from the Almighty, from God Himself. And therefore, like I say, that this is what Isaac was saying, that there's so much potential of good in Esav, if we could just rein it in, if you could use that power that Esav surely has. I mean, again, you say Esav, but you say Europe, how many inventions and discoveries and wisdom has come through Europe. Yes, I said there was a lot of pogroms and anti-Semitism. Yes, that's true. But on the other hand, that there's been the Western thought and Western discovery and just the life that we live today with technology and innovations, and these incredible things are really also come from Western ideas in universities. But on the other hand, you have a way of going good or bad. Now, you can use nuclear energy just for a thought, and God forbid we should even think about it, destroy the world with their bombs. And on the other hand, there's a lot of good things that nuclear energy, it helps us out with our electricity, for example, and there's a lot of good things that these discoveries could mean. So therefore, you can use it for evil, warlike ideas, and you can, on the other hand, use it to help humanity. And that's very special, and that's really the key to everything. And that's what Isaac was thinking. He's saying, man, you have a lot of power, Esav. You have a lot of potential. And that potential, I love to rein it into holiness by giving you my blessing, and therefore you use your energy for something positive. On the other hand, Rebecca, his wife, Rivka, was right in saying it's going to be a long time off. And again, like I say, we have hindsight. It's been thousands, literally thousands of years, where the Jewish people, again, by divine providence, have lived for the most part, in Europe or Western lands, including, like I said, United States or even Latin America. These are all, they speak Spanish, that's from Spain. I mean, these countries are derivatives of the whole Western Hemisphere from Europe, really, in certain senses. And therefore, that we're here in these lands to integrate the Jewish thoughts and influence into the Esav, meaning into the European countries, and change their mind instead of being warlike in order to use their greatness that they do have, these countries do have, and use them in a holy way. And we can really go on for hours and hours, and it's really important to do that. But right now, for us, suffice it to say, and to really thought of how much Jewish influence has been integrated into Western society. And like I say, it's literally a subject for itself. You could say law, democracy, that people have equal rights. These weren't ancient things. There was slavery in thousands of years ago. People were oppressed. They were conquered people. And how much Jewish people said, no, these people are human beings, no matter who they are, what skin color they are, what religion. They're all human beings, and we're all equal. And this is a very Jewish idea. So therefore, I don't think the world, and I know the world doesn't give credit enough to the Jewish people. For me, they do. All right, there's a Jew discovered polio, and Albert Einstein. I know that there's a lot of Nobel Prize winners in the sciences in medicine and etc. from Jewish people, but that idea that there's the Western thought has been refined by Judaism, that you don't see that. But that's why I'm here telling you that's big news. And the big news is just that being by the Jewish people integrating, meaning living, part of society in Europe and America, in Western countries, it actually has been to help them and to refine them in their thoughts instead of going around killing and conquering everybody, to be helpful to other people and to live together. It's a very, very Judaic thought. Even on the United Nations, for example, it's engraved in the wall from Isaiah, which is a Jewish prophet, that you should, turn in the future, you'll turn your swords into pruning plowshares. That idea, again, the United Nations, which contains a few hundred nations, and that's their motto engraved right on their walls of the United Nations. So therefore, that's what I'm saying, this idea that Judaism has said, it's not a matter of war, let's work together and be peaceful together. So ultimately, it didn't happen that way. I mean, Isaac didn't. Rebecca saw that it's going to take thousands of years of refinement. He wanted to push it, so to speak, and power through it and make Isaac. Isaac wanted to make his son Esav right then and there part of the holiness, but again, he jumped too fast, and Rebecca actually understood that it's going to take more time. Like I say, it's thousands of years till that happens. We always hope for the Mashiach to come soon, because the world has been refined a great deal. If you compare it to ancient societies, not ancient, a million years ago, I'm talking thousands of years ago, who they were. Western religion, for example, again, that would be another major example. People were worshiping before 2,000 years ago. You can go to the museum today and see the idols. They were worshiping cats and animals and horses' heads with lion body. I mean, you see how distorted their minds of what God wants. And really, again, Christianity and Islam, just basic fact that they're rooted in the Old Testament. They do hold by the Old Testament and these prophets. So this idea of the religion, for example, is just another example of how more refined people's minds and hearts have been through the influence of Judaism. Now, it's very interesting also, how did Esav die? It was a long story that they wanted to bury Jacob. He was exiled We'll get into that in another week, into Egypt, and then they wanted to bury him, which they did, in Hebron, which is there today. All the patriarchs and matriarchs, except for Rachel, are buried there, and it's holy even today. So you can go there today. I mean, nowadays in Israel to Hebron. But in any case, they were marching back and giving a big funeral procession, of course. And Esav came and said, hey, there's one space left, and I want it. Two brothers, but one space. So what happened is that they they were arguing about it, and one of Jacob's sons was Dan. And Dan was deaf, it said. So he didn't understand what's happening, arguing. If you're deaf, you don't understand. People are arguing with each other. So they just try to, I guess, some kind of language, just saying that Esav doesn't want their father, Jacob, being buried there. He got so upset, he took a sword and hacked off Esav's head. One swipe, I guess. And then Esav's head rolled. This is the story in the Medrash, rolled down and into the cave of Marsa Machpelah. So why is it? Because his head ultimately was holy. His source was a holy source of Esav. And even though his body, like we said, his other instincts were low, but his head was the source of him, like the headquarters of Esav, was a very holy thing. And that's why he was brought back ultimately to be buried near Isaac. Only his head, because his head was a very high level source. So again, that ultimately, that we see everything is divine providence, and that Isaac ultimately wanted Esav to be good and holy, but that's our job. We're the descendants of Jacob and Isaac and Abraham, and our job for the last thousands of years is to refine the European and Western thought and culture, which we have been doing. Again, if you just compare it to what life was thousands of years ago, you'll see that people were barbaric in many, many ways. And again, I'm not saying everything's 100% and utopian today. Again, like I said, you have to wait for the Mashiach Messiah for that. On the other hand, how more advanced we are, not surely technological. That's not the beginning of an issue. But I'm talking about the morals and ethics of society compared to where it was thousands of years ago, even hundreds of years ago. And we have been really been advanced, and many of these ideas come from Jewish influence, that they said the Jewish people have been writing idea and theses, and it has been, like I said, integrated into European thought. So that's a very important idea. That's the deeper meaning of what Esav and Jacob, they had a struggle right from, not the get-go, right from the womb, as we were reviewing, and therefore that they actually struggled then, they struggled constantly, and but ultimately we just hope the struggle is finished, that we can all be friends, and really they are not only brothers, they're twins, they can get along together, and that's what the hope, of course, is, that all humanity should get together and be as one. There shouldn't be any more struggles between each other, that Europeans should learn from the Jewish, I'm saying European, but it's America, it's the Western ideas, should learn from the Jewish people, and in turn goes the other way. The Jewish people have used European, meaning technological advances, to help Judaism. Listen, right here, we're on the television, we're on YouTube, and we're spreading out Judaism through these technological advances. So therefore, it's a two-way street, that Jewish people have helped the world to be more refined in morals and ethics, and the Europeans, again, Western thought, Western technology, has helped Judaism be advanced also. So therefore, ultimately, we should all get together, we should be good together, And again, ultimately, I know it's good and things are getting better, but it's surely not perfect to say the least. And what we want to hope for is the Mashiach Messiah should come and make the entire world better, where all humanity, as the prophet says, will live in peace and have prosperity for everyone, no more diseases, and therefore that will have ultimately a utopian world. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Jewish View.